happy faces coming out excited about science. So like Jess said, my name is Jon Fisher. Can you all still hear me okay? Is this working? Okay. So a lot of my work has to do with sustainable agriculture, and I look at different data sources, things like drones, like you can see here, and satellites. But I find it's hard sometimes to explain my research in just a couple minutes. So I'm going to be presenting work from a colleague of mine, Danny Karp over there. So he does research on wildlife habitat and food safety. And even though it's not my work, it's a good example of the kind of work my team does, trying to do trying to do science that enables better decision making by companies and the public sector. So I'll dive right in. The story begins in 2006. Some of you may remember there was a really large E. coli scare, not just a scare. People got really sick. It spread across 25 states. 3 people were killed. 200 people got really sick with everything from kidney failure to sick to bad diarrhea. And so the next question was, how do we prevent this from happening again? And it was traced back to the central California coast. No surprise, 70% of our salad vegetables come from there. And so the next question is, how do we prevent this? And so we know E. coli comes from poop, so the question was, who's pooping on our salad? And the best guess of the companies that were buying and selling the greens is maybe it's wildlife, like this adorable little guy. And so their response was, let's get rid of all the wildlife in and around the fields. So here's what that looks like. So the top is a before, and on the left you can see a nice spinach field. On the right there's some natural shrubland and grassland. And the bottom, this is a different field, but that nice bare strip at the bottom has been bulldozed. So that used to be habitat, now it's nothing. There's also poison rodent traps, there's wildlife fences, and this is going on everywhere, really widespread. So about 40% of growers in the area reported they'd been doing this wildlife clearing because otherwise they couldn't sell their greens. The people were saying, you have to do this. And meanwhile, this was all going on voluntarily, just the companies were driving it, but the USDA was saying, maybe we should make this a federal law. Maybe we should require farmers to clear habitat around their fields. But they'd skipped an important step. No one had asked, what's the evidence that this is wildlife making us sick? And so Danny decided to ask that question. He looked at a couple data sets. So first is land cover change, looking at things like that clearing of shrubland and grassland and riparian areas. And then he looked at actual E. coli data, so over 200,000 points on farms, looking whether there's E. coli on the greens, and then looking at E. coli in the water to get a sense of how it moves across the landscape. And here's what he found, and bear with me, the graph's a little confusing. So as we go from the right side to the left side along the x-axis, that's more habitat being cleared. So the left side, more habitat's been cleared. As we go from the bottom to the top, we're seeing more E. coli. So if clearing habitat made us safer, you'd expect to see the graph go from the bottom left to the upper right. But we're not seeing that. So we can say there's strong evidence clearing wildlife habitat isn't making us safer, and there's actually some evidence it's making it worse. So that's kind of a surprising finding. So there's a couple reasons that could be. One is that we know lower diversity wildlife populations are more prone to harbor disease. Another one is that vegetation can act as a natural filter. So as that vegetation's been cleared away, we no longer have that vegetation absorbing some of the contaminated waters that flows into the fields. So this is why it's so important to do science, right? If we only confirmed what we thought, we wouldn't have to do it. But the fact we did the science means that before we had a new law put in place nationally, we were able to change that trajectory. So that tells us what's not the problem, but we still haven't solved the question of who is actually the problem. What about these guys? They're pooping too, right up next to that field. And sure enough, if you look at the effect of different land cover types on E. coli, you can see that grazable land is associated with higher levels of E. coli. Now that's not definitively stating it's cows, it's saying this is pasture and rangeland. It could be feral pigs that have the same type of E. coli, it could be something else, but we can say the more you have grazing land and cows grazing, the more we're seeing E. coli on our grains. Meanwhile, the more nature there is near each farm, the less chance there is that there's E. coli on the grains. So that's confirming that wildlife is protective, in addition to providing services like pest control and obviously recreation and wildlife habitat itself. So what do we do as a society now that we know that wildlife is not hurting us and maybe it's the cows? Well, for one thing, let's keep that vegetation, especially along streams, because we know it can act as that filter. Also along pastures or rangelands to sort of, again, filter that dirty water that might be coming from pastures. We can also have buffers of different kinds of crops. So for example, something like a grain, rye, barley, wheat is cooked, so we don't have to worry as much about E. coli on it. But the most important thing is to stop the habitat destruction. So what can you do as consumers? What can all of us do? Well, most of you probably buy greens once in a while. And when you do, get on the phone. Go to the customer service desk, whether it's the grocery store or whether it's the company that puts your salad in a box, you buy it that way, and call them up and say, are you guys using the best available science and encouraging your producers to keep wildlife habitat, or are you still using outdated information and promoting destruction that's not helping us and it's not helping wildlife either? So if you go to the link at the top there, salad.sciencejon.com, and there's no H in Science John, I've got the references and I've also got text that you can copy and paste in email. So if you'd like to take a picture of something, go there. And yeah, let the people who you're buying greens from know that you want wildlife near your green fields. So with that, I'll take any questions y'all have. Oh, sorry, I should speak closer to the mic. Sorry.
Any questions?
Super clear. The PowerPoint's not available somewhere, but it could be.
It should be.
Yeah, for sure.
What's that? Maybe.
I'll put it up on that same link.
Website.
How about that?
Oh, on that link? Okay.
I'll do that later.
Okay.
It's not there yet. That was either really clear or that went faster than I was expecting, so maybe you guys are still just like unschooling and. Did birds carry E. coli? That's a really good question that I actually don't know the answer to. I don't think so, but I can check. I've actually got a copy of the paper with me, so we can double check that. I know like other rodents and certainly hogs can, but I'm not sure about birds.
Do you think in the effort to, is it better with the growing demand for food supply to be trying to, I guess, horticulture approach where you're changing the land, or do you think indoor farming, vertical farming, hydroponics is a better direction? Because that removes us from the outside.
Sure, so the question was whether we should be continuing to work on horticulture and sort of outdoor farming or focus on indoor and vertical farming. So I haven't personally done research on the indoor vertical stuff, but the folks I've talked to have said that in many cases it's hard to make the economics work with indoor vertical farming. You've got to, in many cases, provide the lights, which uses energy. In some cases where you have like, a wealthy urban area, you may have an economic demand for the hyper-local produce, but I've heard a lot of people say that in a lot of places it's hard to make it work. So TNC is mostly focusing on outdoor farming, on sustainable intensification, trying to produce more food with the same land area while also having cleaner water and other outcomes. Question in the back?
The fact that it's labeled organic, does that mean it's more likely to have been raised in the right environment or not?
Yeah, great question. So for this situation, the answer is no. Organic, in fact, a lot of these greens that were being cleared were organic greens. So organic means a lot of things that are good. It means they're doing more soil health practices, but there's a lot of things that doesn't mean that people think it might, so they can still apply pesticides, some of which are quite toxic. They can still do this habitat destruction. So by all means, like if there's a company you really like to buy greens from, reach out to them and let them know how you want them to grow your food and ask that question.
Irrigation, how's the water monitored?
How's water monitored? You mean like from an E. coli perspective, or? That's a really good question. I also don't know the answer to. So the E. coli we think is mostly coming from outside the fields running in, so I think it wouldn't matter unless there's irrigation on neighboring kind of upland farms, but I can check if you want. I'll get back to you.
Are specific types of vegetation better to prevent E. coli than others?
That's another really good question that I don't think we have strong scientific evidence for yet. So we know that vegetation can physically act in that absorbing or adsorbing capacity, but I have some guesses. My guess would be that the thicker the grass are, the more kind of surface area you have, the better, as opposed to if there's a forest without a lot of vegetation in the ground. But I'm just guessing at that point. It's not good science. So yeah.
All right. Thank you guys so much. If you have further questions for Jon.